Texas for Life podcast. I am Landon Thomas, joined by my co-host Shahnavaz Makhani. Shahnavaz repping the Texas Longhorns.
Let's go.
That's your school, man. How you feeling about that?
I'm excited, man. College football playoff rematch against Washington from last year. I think it was the Alamo Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of storylines. Sarkisian against his old team. First time Texas has been good since I was in college, over 10 years ago. So it's an exciting time to be a Longhorn, man.
Do you have like a little rabbit foot, or do you do anything for luck?
No, because every time I've tried the last decade, we've sucked. So this is the first year I was like, I'm not going to do anything,
and look what happened.
It worked out. So
there you go.
That's my new thing. I'm just going to sit quietly and patiently and watch the game. That's my plan.
All right, so on this episode, we have the first quarter report card for the Dallas Mavericks players. So this should be a very interesting episode. I haven't seen any of Shahnavaz's grades, and he hasn't seen any of mine. So
yep,
this should be very interesting. Okay, so the criteria for the report card is A to F. No pluses, no minuses, not numeric value. We're just going A to F, and we're just going to give our grade and what we think so far during the season. So, Shahnavaz, you ready?
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
All right. So, the first player that we will
this is at random, right? We're not going like starting lineup, bench. You're just going to throw names out.
Yeah. We're just gonna do it random.
Awesome.
We'll save Kyrie and Luka for last, but the other players are just random.
Deal. Let's do it.
All right. So the first player is Richaun Holmes.
Oh boy, I figured you were gonna start with something obscure like that.
So Richaun Holmes is averaging 2.8 points per game and 3.5 rebounds per game in 11 games played. He started one game. What is your grade and what's your overall report card for him?
I wish I could give an incomplete because it feels like we don't really have a lot on Holmes. I mean, we've barely seen him play this year, it feels like, but the time we've seen him play, I mean, I guess I'd give him like a D. I mean, I don't know. Like it's hard because we haven't seen him. I mean, when the Mavs acquired him over the summer in that draft day deal with Sacramento, I was kind of excited because I thought, a couple of years ago, I mean, he was a guy that everyone around the league was clamoring for, right? Everyone really wanted a guy like Richaun Holmes. He's undersized a little bit for a center, but the guy can rebound. The guy can, block shots. I mean, he's an okay defender, but kind of another big body, in the low post that the Mavericks really needed. And we just haven't seen it, in long stretches. I mean, I think there was a stretch of 4 or 5 games there kind of sandwiched in the middle of the year where he's played a lot. I think it was he played 20 minutes against the Lakers and the Clippers, and then, 18 against Memphis, 13 against Houston. But other than that, we haven't really seen much of Richaun Holmes. And even in those games, he wasn't overly effective. And in other games, he's come in blowouts, either for or against the Mavericks in their favor. So I'd have to give him a D just right now. I mean, I don't know if this is more of a Jason Kidd thing or if it's just he hasn't earned his playing time in practice. And so that's kind of where my concern is. I mean, if he had played more and, we had a little bit more info on him, you could probably bump him up to a C. But I think right now, the limited time that we've seen him, there's nothing that tells me that he's earned any more playing time than he's gotten.
Yeah. I mean, what you said was well thought out and very precise on your answer, and I keep going back and forth from a C to a D.
Yeah,
and I have to think big picture here because we're not doing pluses and minuses, so you have to put them in the box. And I think when I look at the criteria for grading, I say A is like exceeding expectations, like better than what you thought they were going to be. B is meeting expectations. C is disappointed or you thought that would be better. And D is you really not seeing much, or like your answer is incomplete.
Yeah.
And F is just bad. It's just it's just playing bad.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So when I think about that, I really have to go with D. I really have to agree with you on that because when he has played, it's really been sporadic. I mean, the minutes, his production. I mean, a couple games he had good games, and a couple games he got the minutes and he really didn't do anything. So, just based on what I thought he was going to be coming into the Mavericks, I thought he had a chance to start for the team. I thought he had a chance to definitely play a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Obviously Lively has done really good, and Powell, it's like seesaw. They keep taking turns on who's the backup center. So I'm just gonna say D for right now. From what we've seen, it's really remains to be seen on Richaun Holmes.
And I have a feeling, and it came across as you were kind of talking about it, because you when you talk about backup bigs, I think the Mavericks are struggling internally as well with having Maxey injured, because
Ooh, yeah.
you're having to kind of play Dwight and Holmes in kind of these dual roles essentially as like forwards and centers, right? Because you're kind of undersized at that 4 spot without Maxey off the bench. I mean, Omax is a rookie, right? Like, and Grant can't play 48 minutes a game, so I think having Maxey out has really put Kid and the Mavericks in a really tough spot just from a backup big perspective.
Yeah. And they're even small with Powell and Holmes.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like they're just small across the board. Lively is like the only 7-footer.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting with the trade deadline. That's gonna be interesting. Because it seems like this season is the season where you're the closest to parity. I mean, you have some teams that you think are at the top, but you really don't. I mean, it's really a fluidity of teams. You instead of looking at every single year where you have like 3 or 4 contenders, you really have probably you just look at the top 10 teams and say, okay, let's see how it goes the rest of the season.
Yeah, and even at the top of the West, I mean, does anybody think like Minnesota's a good team, but is it sustainable for them to be, the best team in the Western Conference? I mean, they're eventually going to come down, right? I mean, things are going to move a lot, over the next couple of months, as like you said, as we get into kind of that trading season, and and when the new year starts.
Agree. Okay, so we agree on that. Let's hit the second player with a bang. Let's do Tim Hardaway Jr.
Tim Hardaway Jr. You want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. So his stats for the season: 16.8 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 1.6 assists. So when I look at his season, and he's averaging 38% from beyond the arc, 41.6 overall, I'm going to say a B for Tim Hardaway Jr. I was thinking about an A, just for the fact that he's finally embraced his role as sixth man. But just thinking about everything that I've seen so far from this season, I think it's a B. I think this is how he should be playing. He should be shooting at least 30% beyond the arc with the talent that he has, and he should be one of the best 6 men in the league. And I think he's meeting the expectations of those 2 criteria for him. So, and just going back to his role of being a shooter rather than a scorer. We've talked about it. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. When he has the ball in his hands and he's making plays, that's not his game. That's not really where you want him to be on your team. And that's what they needed from him with the loss of Brunson. And, it was really him and Dinwiddie just trying to going outside of their role. And now he's back in just being a jump shooter. And that's what I love about it, because you have Kyrie and Luka giving him open shots, and he's making most of them. So I give him a B.
So I'm gonna. Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So my grading scale is a little bit differently, right?
Okay.
The way you said it.
Yeah.
So for me, a C is kind of where I expected someone to be, right? I think C is you meet expectations. That's kind of where you are. B is, you're above expectation. A is just you're blowing it out of the water, right? And then obviously D and F. And again, we can't do minus it. Man, I'm gonna give Hardaway a B as well. I was leaning a C.
Oh, I thought you were going.
I was leaning a C only because I think the last 5 games we've seen kind of that slump from Hardaway, who's only averaging 12 points a game. We've seen the shooting kind of fall off a little bit, but when you take into account the injuries that the Mavericks have suffered and the fact that he's having to play kind of that very same role he played last year, where it's like he's got to be one of the creators on the team. To your point, that's not his role, right? His role is catch and shoot, get hot and score. So, if you look at the season in totality, I think he's had a much better, a better season than I expected, to be honest. I mean, coming into the year, I wasn't high on what he could do, and to your point, he embraced his role, right? I mean, we talked about it in the offseason. He, with Kidd not really declaring what he was going to be or what his situation was, he's come in and he's played like a 6th man of the year candidate, and he deserves credit for that. And he's had some games where he's, completely taken over me. He led the Mavericks in scoring. Yes, it was the Wizards, but he still put up 31 against the Wizards off the bench, right? So in a game where Josh Green, again, played 37 minutes and had 0 points. So when the Mavericks have needed him, Hardaway's stepped up and he's embraced that role off the bench. Even with the injuries, he's come off the bench. And I think that's a big thing for a veteran guy like that, to accept his role humbly and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I do best and come in and score. So yes, the last 5 games have been bad for Tim Hardaway Jr., but take into account the Mavericks injuries, I think he's played better than I would have expected this year. So yeah, I'll go with a B on that as well.
Okay. So we both have different grading criteria, and we both agree on the first 2 players.
Great minds, my
Great
friend.
minds think alike, and this should be interesting on the 3rd player.
Ooh.
And you're gonna go first, Jaden Hardy.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. I am actually gonna go. Oh man, I'm gonna go with a C with Jaden Hardy. I think, and we talked about this. It was a couple episodes ago, but I think we talked about Jaden Hardy's got to make the most of his opportunities that he's been given. And I think you've seen as games have gone on, as the season's gone on, Hardy's getting more and more playing time. Yes, Exum's getting it, but I think you're starting to see kind of, Hardy's getting more double-digit minutes. And when he's taking advantage of his opportunities. The first couple of games, he was struggling out the gate, wasn't shooting the ball well, but then you've seen him hit double-digit scoring even in limited minutes. So I'd say he's meeting my expectations. I would love to see him play more. Like I really, really would love to see him. And now with Josh Green sidelined, like I would expect Jaden Hardy to play more. I think there's defensive limitations, obviously, but offensively, I mean, the guy can catch fire with anybody on this team. So I would expect him to play more, but I think he's played well in the opportunities he's been given. So I'll give him a C.
It's a tough one.
Ooh.
And I was starting to agree with you with a C, but I'm gonna give him a D.
Okay, that's where I was thinking first. So I bumped him up.
Yeah, I just think overall, I mean, obviously his playing time is random. I mean, at the beginning, he wasn't playing. At the early first couple games, he wasn't playing. Then he took over Seth Curry's role, and then he played quite a bit for a certain amount of games, and then now you see Curry taking over his role. He's back to getting minutes, so it's kind of a seesaw with them too. But from what I've seen so far, and he has his moments like you've mentioned, and I'm just comparing it to last season and the trajectory of the season, how it played out. Is trending. Oops, sorry. When I look at these stats,
No, you're good.
uh, um, and I look at the trajectory of the season that he had last year, it's trending up. And then you go into this season and the minutes that he did play, and you just look at his stats. I mean, it's disappointing. It's very disappointing. It's not only disappointing, it's beyond disappointing because you would think for the minutes that he does play, he would at least be, I don't know, 34% from the three, and
Yeah.
he's shooting 28.9.
Yeah.
And that's what that was one of his biggest strengths last year, is the 3-point line. And then also just being able to make plays. He's putting up 1.4 assists, but he has 0.8 turnovers. He's shooting 38.8 overall from the field. So I'm going to give him a D. I was expecting more. I mean, you see it on the timeline, and I like Hardy. We both like Hardy.
Yeah,
We
a lot.
both want him to, reach his potential. But I'm honestly seeing his name in trades. And last season, they were,
There's no
all the
one.
fans were like, he's untouchable.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, this roster was not what it is.
Yeah.
Last year, after, especially after the Dinwiddie and Dorian trade, after getting Kyrie, where we saw kind of Hardy emerge. The bench was completely lacking in any kind of any way possible, any way you think about it. I mean, Mavericks really didn't have a bench last year, right towards the end of the year, and I think the fact that we were trying to secure a draft pick. I mean, so you play a young guy like Hardy, and he took advantage of his opportunity. And yes, should he be playing better? Yes, but I also think when you've got guys like, you go and give Seth a 3-year deal, you get Exum, obviously those are commitments you're making to veteran players when this team is trying to make the playoffs and trying to win a series and like trying to make it back to the conference finals. And are you going to put, are you putting that trust in a guy who, was a second round pick out of the G League for whatever reason, right? I mean, in my mind, he should have been a first rounder, but fact of the matter is he was a second rounder, right? So are you putting, the hands of your playoff push into a guy that's a second round pick, a second year player in the NBA? Or you're going to give it to a guy who's been in situations like that in Seth Curry, and a guy who's a better defender in Dante Exum? So those are kind of the things. I'm not saying that the Mavericks should do that. I'm just saying that's what they're doing, right? Looking at it from kids' perspective, it's, you're kind of like, all right, like our defense is not good, so let's get a guy like Exum in there who can defend, bigger guards, whether it's they're in the starting lineup or not.
But that's the problem. You're giving kid, a choice. It shouldn't be a choice. Yeah. He should be the third ball handler, just based off how he ended last season. I mean, Lively, he's playing all these minutes, and he's 19. I mean, that's the true. First round, second round, but Omax is a first round. He doesn't play at all. So it's kind of like you have to take advantage of the minutes that you do play. And if I saw some of the flashes from last season more than I did not, then I would give him a higher grade and move him up to the C. But it's just, from what I have seen, it's more potential rather than reality.
Yeah,
and that's from this season.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Mavericks, do put him on the trade block, because I mean, if you're not going to,
crazy.
Like, if you're not going to,
months ago,
let him go to another team, right? I mean, hopefully you can get value for him, because I think he's going to be a really good player, in a couple of years. So you're hoping that somebody's buying into that potential as well, and you better be getting somebody that, it's not going to make you look foolish.
Yeah, because a few months ago, we were all thinking he could have a potential chance of sixth man of the year, the way he was scoring at the end of last season. So it's going to be interesting. Speaking of the trade deadline, like we mentioned, I mean, it's going to be interesting because it seems like the Mavs will have to be buyers to put them up in the next level of contention. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
Jaden Hardy. So let's go with Omax. Let's go with the rookie Omax Prosper.
Whoa. I think you're first on this one, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I'm first on this one. So, and this is where the grading gets interesting because,
What do you expect out of it? I mean,
exactly, it's a rookie.
oh,
So I won't grade him too harsh, but when you have to think at the beginning of the season in training camp, his stock was high. His
no.
stock was at the same height as Derek Lively right
Mm-hmm.
now, because we were all talking, not just us and not just everyone on Twitter and not just Mavs Nation, but like Jason Kidd was talking about potentially having two rookies start.
Rookies, yep.
So how the season came into fruition, I'm starting to think, should I grade it how I want to grade it, or should I give him the benefit of doubt? And I think I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt, and I'm going to say Omax is a C. I'll just give him a C.
Okay.
I was thinking a D and I was thinking a B. So
Which way do you go?
I'm just thinking in the middle. I'm just gonna give him a C because I think he has potential, but we're basing it off of what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give a D because it's kind of like a Rashawn Holmes moment where, he hasn't played, so it's really incomplete. We really haven't seen him, but he's a rookie.
Yep.
So that's why I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt. And I also was going to give him a B of my grading criteria, just from what I expected him to be, which is kind of this. I mean, I thought he was going to be a fringe rotation player just after everything prevailed, but I'm just going to give him a C on how things are right now.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of the same thing. I think with Rashawn Holmes, I think it's kind of incomplete. I mean, we haven't seen enough yet to make any real determination on what he's going to be. I mean, I wish with Kleba going down, I thought it would open up more opportunities for him, which is kind of like I'm like, but again, like you said, he's a rookie, So I mean, I think Lively is it's kind of those weird scenarios because we don't see a lot of rookies perform the way that they're expected to, right? I would say, and Lively's obviously surpassed, I think, what people are expecting. Wemby, I think, has a lot of expectations around him. So any I don't think he'll meet what people are thinking, right? So he it's kind of the same thing. So I mean, Omax coming in, I mean, yes, he was a first round pick, but I think there's still some seasoning there that he's not a great shooter. He's a good, really, he's a good defender, but very similar in the mold of a Dorian Finney-Smith, where he comes in with the specialty of being a defender, and he's got to work on the other parts of his game. So I think Omax, yes, as a first round prospect, is more of a long term, hopefully not too long term, but more of a project, right? Like somebody who's going to learn from a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., right? Learn from a guy like Tim Hardaway, on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's going to take some seasoning for him, but I mean, I don't think you can grade him either anything but a C just because we haven't seen enough from him at this point.
Yeah, I agree, and I think his second year and his third year is going to be decent. And that's where you just mentioned his shooting. His shooting really has to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Because his defense is good enough where you're shooting. If he develops that shot, he can get minutes. Because this team needs defense, and if he keeps growing his shooting percentage, he'll get minutes. I mean, you don't have to be a sniper like Curry or Hardaway Jr. and like just be decent. At shooting and just show improvement. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
Okay, next is let's do Dante Exum.
Oh boy, I'm up first, right? On this one. I'm giving Dante Exum an A. Man, I didn't think he was gonna be part of the rotation. I didn't think he'd be on the roster. And I thought it was like a random pickup. I thought it was, one of those Mark Cuban things where he just signs some random dude and for headlines and to make the news and stuff. Exum has surpassed every expectation I had of him. I mean, you talk about a guy coming from overseas that still young, right? He was a lottery pick, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
and just kind of cast away. But he's making, I mean, some of the passes he made in that Utah game, what was it, Wednesday night? I mean, we're unbelievable. Yeah. He's played great defense, this season. His shooting has been pretty good. Like he's knocking down threes, which I know was kind of a weak part of his game. At least as the season's gone on, he's gotten better and better as a shooter. And clearly, Kid trusts him because he's the first guard off the bench. Like he's the one who's coming in for Kyrie and Luka. So, I'm giving him an A, man. Like I think he's at least from my perspective, he's far surpassed anything that I thought he was going to do this year.
Yeah, I give him an A too. I think that's a no-brainer from what we've seen from him, what we expected from him. He's surpassed that, and he does everything really well. I mean, his shooting is the only thing that you would want to see get better, and it has gotten better, like you mentioned. But you want it to be even better than what it is now. Just as the season goes along, because he's going to get more minutes as the season goes along and playing meaningful games because his defense, because his IQ, you don't have to worry about him making out of the norm sporadic plays because he just makes the right play. And I think that's really good about him. He defends full court. Not a lot of guards on this team can. Yeah. And then also he pushes the pace on the opposite side of the court.
That's the other thing, yeah.
Which is really good.
Yeah. He's gotten this team out in transition a lot, and I know Kyrie likes to run, and when him and Kyrie are together on the floor, it's awesome.
And he rebounds. He rebounds too. And he has big size. He's like 6'6". So and then also just the way he's able to blend. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the underrated parts of his game. One of the writers, Jacob Pasternak, wrote about him and just the way he's able. Yeah, because he part of his story was the way he's able to know what's needed of him in the game. Like if they're needing more of defense, he will focus on that. If they're needing more of ball handling, he'll shine in that, or rebounding, like whatever is needed in that game, he usually can go do. I mean, and that's been a part of that signing that's been great value.
And I think playing internationally has a lot to do with that. Honestly,
yeah.
I think point. You look at all these international players that come in, and they sort of have like this, like I feel like they understand the game better, right? And I'm not saying like homegrown players in the U.S. are not like that, but I think in the like youth basketball here in the States and college basketball and even kids jump, who did jump from high school or play in the G League, it's all about your numbers and your shot and your dunks and all that.
And athleticism.
Yeah, and you come over from Europe and it's guys like Luka, like Jokic, like Dante Exum, who there's a very different way to play the game. Guys like Pau Gasol, right? Marc Gasol, like guys who played the game very differently. Tony Parker. I mean, you can go back and look at all the Dirk. I mean, look at all the guys that have played from Europe and overseas that just have a better understanding of how to play team basketball. I think it's helped Exum and the Mavericks tremendously.
Agree. Okay, so let's go with Maxi Kleber.
Ooh, you're up on this one, man.
Yeah, Maxi Kleber. Good luck. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep it a buck, right? So obviously injuries, and we haven't seen much from him recently. Yeah. You could say a D, but I'm going to F.
Oh,
I'm going to F. I mean, his defense hasn't been good when he played. He played how many games did he play? He only played like 5 games this
Yeah, I think
season,
it's 5 or 6, and then he went out.
and his defense was bad, and
Yeah,
that's what they need from him. He's the best. Well, we saw Lively grow tremendously, but he's one of the best big men on the team defensively.
Mhm.
And then, you know, then obviously he's not playing, so he's injured. That's another thing that puts him down on my grading criteria. And then his shooting, he's shooting 33.3% beyond the arc, and this is Maxi Kleba. You would think
Mhm.
it's at least 35. Um, because that's his career average. And then he's shooting 25% from the field. 25. That's crazy. You would think the field goal would be higher than the 3-point percentage.
Yeah.
So I'm giving Maxi a F, and it's really, we'll get to Josh Green later, but
Oh boy.
the Mavs with these extensions, I just think they're 0 for 2 so far from what we've seen this quarter, and that's what we're basing it on. We're not basing it on last year. We can compare it to last year, but we're based on this quarter, and I'm giving it Maxi a F.
Yeah, I was leaning F. I'm gonna give him a D, like a
Okay,
D minus minus minus, like
no
teetering on.
minuses,
I
no
know.
minuses.
I know. And the only reason I say it, yes, he played 5 games. Yes, he was awful in those 5 games. But I truly think he was still injured coming into the year. Like, I don't think the
Okay,
hamstring was
I
healed.
respect that.
Right. I think he's on the other end. He's on the other side of 30, and once you cross that threshold and you get hurt, it sucks. Like, it's hard to come back. Like I think. And that injury happened late last year, right? The hamstring
Yeah,
injury was like February, March of last year, right? For Maxi. So depending on how long that recovery takes, I just don't think he was healthy coming into the year. And I think,
hmm
we talked about it game 1 against Wemby. I don't think they wanted to throw Lively like in there right away against, such a super hyped prospect like Wemby. So you throw Maxi in there at starting center, and it obviously looks terrible. But yeah, it wasn't great. Like, I mean, you would expect Maxi, especially as like one of the veteran leaders on this team, to play
yeah,
better and shoot better. And he's had a couple of down years. We've seen him obviously thrive next to Luka, and we know Luka loves him and trusts him, and obviously Kid does as well. But if he can get right, depending on when that is,
yeah,
he could be valuable off the bench. Like, I think he's another piece that this team could use, especially when you talk about the defensive struggles that the Mavericks have had. If he can just play better on the defensive end, I don't care about the offense because we can score points. Like, that's not a concern to me anymore. I think defensively, especially off the bench, when you have to sub out a guy like Grant Williams, who we've seen struggle recently, because and I we'll get to that, but I think when you can sub in a guy like Maxi who can play defense, just give you 15, 18 minutes a game, I think that's going to be really valuable down the stretch. So it's going to be interesting to see when he comes back. Does he come back?
yeah.
I just think he was injured coming into the year, so I'll still give him a D. I mean, I'm not propping him up and saying that he's meeting expectations. It's worse than I thought, but I'll take the injury into account.
Okay, I respect that. I mean, they're definitely going to need him,
Yeah,
but they're going to need the good version of him.
yeah.
He can't just come back just to play.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
definitely.
they need a defender, especially
And
behind
and
Lively.
luckily, they're the Mavericks are winning, which is good, right? They had that
True,
kind of
true.
rough stretch, when I was out of the country, but now that I'm back, it seems to be that things are back on
Yeah,
track.
there
So
we go.
they
Yeah,
don't need to rush him back, which is good. So let's let him rehab, let him take care of himself, and bring him back when the time's right.
okay, so let's go on to his best friend, Dwight Powell.
Boy,
You're up this time.
I'm up. Look, I'll be 100%, and I know you as a Mavs fan, you either love Dwight Powell or you hate Dwight Powell. There's no in between, right? There's
Nope.
no, oh, I'm okay with it, or it's you either love him or you hate him. I'll give him a B, man. Like, I think he's played better than what we expected. And say what you will about Dwight Powell, but the man plays hard. The man can set screens. The man can roll to the basket. But now he's doing it off the bench, and that's what we've asked for 3 years.
Yeah.
All we've asked for is let him play. bring him off the bench. And you talk about extensions. The guy's getting $4 million a year. Like you're not paying him like a substantial amount anymore, right? Like you sign him to a team friendly deal where he can just be a guy off the bench. He's played great. Like I don't know what nitpicking. Sure, like does he still suck sometimes at rebounding? Yes, we've seen him struggle at rebounding. We've seen him get hit in the face like he always does. We've seen him have mishaps on the defensive end. But I think there's a trust built in with Luka. There's a trust built in with Kidd, and there's a trust built in with Kyrie now as well with Dwight Powell. And I think he gives you that another veteran presence, especially when you need somebody down low when Lively can come out, and I think he's a good mentor to Dwight or to Derek Lively as well.
Yeah.
In terms of like how to set proper screens, which you've seen it work now with Luka and Lively with all the lobs he's catching. So I think Dwight's played better than we expected. So I'll give him a B.
I give him a B as well. I was honestly going to give him an A just for coming off the bench finally. Yeah. But we're basing it on play, not not GM or coaching. So I'm going to give him a B. Just from the fact that he still has a high field goal percentage. 74%, and he's playing 14.4 minutes per game, and that's what you want from Dwight Powell. I would rather him be the third big, the third center, and Maxey the third power forward. But from what he has shown, he's been a decent backup big, and that's averaging 4 and 3. That's fine with me.
Sure.
I mean, he's pretty much done that the past couple of years, but now
it's off. Now he's not starting. He's not in the starting lineup, playing 32 minutes and averaging 4 points.
Yeah, and that's why I give him a B. I expect him to do this off the bench, and I'm happy with it. So I give him a B.
Yeah, I mean, and look, when you talk about bench, I mean, the Mavericks especially, I think, are one of those teams where you need depth. Like this is we've struggled with having depth for the last few years. It seems even in the conference finals run, like we got exposed by Golden State in that in the conference finals because of our lack of depth, right? Like you were playing your starting lineup like 45 minutes a game. I mean, who are you going to trust off the bench? Yeah. Now you've got a guy, even if Lively gets into foul trouble, right? With Kleba,
exactly.
With Kleba hurt, you've got a guy you trust, and I think that's huge. And all the talk, of Dwight Powell's mishaps, like off the bench, 15 minutes a game is exactly what we've asked for, and he's delivering. So yeah, a B is a perfect grade for him.
Okay, so let's go to Seth Curry.
Ooh, that's on you.
Seth Curry. Okay, so when I think about Seth Curry this season, what he's done, he's played in 16 games. He's shooting 37.1 beyond the arc, 40% overall, but most of his shots are threes or long twos. And he's shooting 85%, 85.7 from free throw, averaging 0.9 assists, 1.4 rebounds. Not really his game. He's a shooter. 11 minutes per game. But what was I expecting from him this season? That's tough because I thought Hardy was going to be the third ball handler. And I thought Seth Curry was going to be one of the wings along with THJ. They're just going to be the 3-point duo off the bench. So I'm going to say he's averaging 4 points. I'm going to say this is tough.
It's a hard one, yeah.
I'm going to say, let me just say a C.
Okay.
It's like I'm kind of disappointed, but
yeah. No, I
but
get
he's
it.
also meeting expectations. So
yeah.
But I'm more leaning towards a C rather than a B or A because we're not doing pluses or minuses. So that's
That makes it too
pretty
hard.
big.
Yeah.
So I'll just say a C. What would you say?
Yeah, I was gonna say a C. I think I think it's not exactly what I expected, but I think when you look at what Exum has done, I think Exum's taken away
Hey, we both
playtime.
gave
Yeah,
A's, yeah.
look, he's taken it away from Curry and Hardy. I think because Luka and Kyrie are going to get their minutes, so really you've got maybe 18 minutes like off the bench for like
Yeah.
guards, like because you're going to play one of Luka and Kyrie at all times, so you've really got 20 minutes off the bench for like a point guard, and Exum's getting the majority of those. So
Yeah.
I think the way he's been playing, he's taken some of that away from Seth and Hardy, and I think more so than Hardy, I think Curry has just played to the way we've seen him knock down threes, we've seen him hit like you said, those long twos. I mean, that's kind of his game. We've seen him play the way he's played. I wasn't expecting him to come in and be his brother. I wasn't expecting him to come in and be a sixth man of the year, anything like that. Like, he's going to be an end of the rotation kind of guy. I think that's where he is, where he's at in his career right now. And look, he could have, I'm sure over the offseason, he could have taken other offers where he'd get more playing time and get the opportunity to shoot more. But clearly it seems like he wanted to be back here, so I love it. He's got good chemistry with Kyrie and Luka, and really that's all you can ask for. And he's I think he's played fine, in the opportunities he's been given.
Yeah, I almost bumped him up to a B, just for defending Luka.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But I just had to stick to my gut. All right, so this will be a quick one. Markieff Morris.
F, I don't know. What does he play? Like 1 minute? Like, I don't know. F, sure.
Yeah, four games, 7 minutes. I give him a D, because I don't give him an F like I did Maxey, but I just give him a D just because kind of incomplete for me. It's not really, there's nothing really to see there, and I didn't expect much either.
No, I think he's just one of those veteran bench guys that's there, just to hang out.
Yeah, good vibes, and he's obviously a good one of the good voices in the locker room from what everyone's saying. So, but just from playing, that's what I give him. Okay, let's do Josh Green.
You get to start this one, bud.
Dang it!
Yeah, you gave me Markieff. I love it.
Ah, man. Okay, I should have switched that.
That's the one I've been waiting for.
Okay, so alongside of Maxey, I'm going to give Josh Green an F.
Okay.
We said it at the beginning of the season. This was the make or break year for him, because technically it's really his third season in the league. Technically, I mean, obviously the first season he didn't even play, but just from what we saw under Jason Kidd, the first season, in the second season, and now from what I'm seeing, I thought the trajectory was going to go. I thought this was a breakout year.
Mm-hmm.
You finally get the bag. You don't have to worry about contract situation. You're guaranteed, the next 3 years, and you're good to go. You got great money. So I'm thinking now he's just going to go hoop. And he does play. He does play. But when you look at it, it's different. Like, from stats wise, Exum doesn't have great stats. But when you watch him, you're like, this is a hooper. He's doing so many things, great things for this team. And when I watch Josh Green this season, not last season, because I was high on him last season. This season, I'm beyond disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beyond this. I can't give him a D. I can't give him a C or B. I'm beyond disappointed. 6.9 points per game. He's shooting 36.5 from the beyond the arc and 42.2 from the field. He's playing 25 minutes, and you're thinking, oh, those are just regular numbers. What's wrong? No, Josh Green is the most efficient dude on this, one of the most efficient dude on this team the past 2 years. When you look at his shooting and his also his defense was good. But this season it's just okay. His defense, but his offense has regressed big time. And I'm disappointed big time.
Oh boy. Yeah, I can't disagree with
Because
you.
I see Maxi hoop every night. I see Bane hoop every night. All these players hooping behind them. And I know I can't keep bringing that up. I know you love, Bane, so we talk about it a lot, but I'm just saying, from what I'm seeing from his peers and who got paid,
I mean you're 100% right. Like we talk about seizing your opportunity, and Josh Green has finally gotten a chance. It felt like the last few years we were always wondering, like, okay, kid, like, give him a chance, like, let this, like, when we saw him in small spurts, we were like, man, this kid's got talent, like, he just needs a chance. He needs to be able to play consistent minutes. Like, what, we throw him in the starting lineup and then we take him out. We throw him in, we take him out, then we don't play him. He gets DNPs. Then he plays like 5 minutes. Then he plays 35 minutes. And it's like, for the last 2 years, we're like, we just wanted to see him consistently get minutes. And this season we have, and to your point, he hasn't done crap with it. Like, it's the Washington game. Like, how do you play 37 minutes against the Wizards and not score a point? Like, I don't understand. It was mind blowing to me. He's completely underperformed. I agree with you there. I will defend the fact that the Mavericks signed him to the contract, because I think, especially now in the NBA, you can't let people go for free, regardless of.
But he was going to be a restricted free agent. Just wait
really
it out.
You really trust the Mavericks when it comes? Like, I'm
just wait it out. Now you're gonna pay him $13 million a year when someone else could have paid him
nothing. Like,
someone else could have paid him $10 million a year.
He could have paid him 20. Like, you don't know, right? Like, if somebody saw the potential,
if someone paid him 20, good luck. I'm happy for you.
But that's the thing, right? Like, this is the first quarter, right? So we're talking this first stretch of games.
But he might miss the whole second quarter. I mean, he missed like 20 games last season off the same injury.
Yeah, but who's to say he doesn't come in? He's still young, right? Like,
true. Yeah.
And you also said it. He basically missed his first year. So really, we're looking at a 2-year time frame. These other guys you mentioned, Tyrese Maxey, Desmond Bane, have played since their initial rookie years. So he's kind of like a year behind in terms of development. Plus, it's a lot of, like, you can throw every excuse in the book at Josh Green, right? And like what the situation he's been in. I will say the last 5 games he played in, he actually played ever since that Washington dud, and I think he had 3 points against Milwaukee. But since then, he played at about 24 minutes a game, and he was averaging 8 points, shooting 44% from 3. Like, you started to see a little bit of improvement there, and then the injury happened. So, yes, we want to see more, but to your point, based on the expectations we had for him coming into the season, you and I both were really high on him. Like,
we had him starting.
Yeah, we were like, you got to start him. He's got to be. And now it makes sense why Derrick Jones Jr. is starting, right? Like, talk about a guy who's going to get paid, first off. But I think, and I don't know if that signing, like, messed with his psyche or not. Like, I don't know what goes on psychologically, but the unfortunate thing now is that he's injured. Like, we saw a really good 5-game stretch from him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if you look at the totality of the first quarter of the season, it's been a major disappointment. Like, this guy is not playing up to what we expected him to play. So yes, it's an F for sure, 100%.
Oh wait, so you agree? I thought you were going D.
No, I said at the beginning. I said it was an F. I said if I take the whole, I was gonna give him a D, to be honest.
Gotcha.
The last 5 games he's played really well, but you can't score 0 points against the Wizards when you play 37 minutes like that. You can at least hit a shot.
It's the Wizards.
Or a free throw or something.
Yeah.
That team is awful.
Yeah.
Who's worse, the Wizards or the Pistons?
Oh, the Wizards.
There's a question for you.
The Wizards. I mean, the Pistons have at least talent on the team. They just have no shooting. But the Wizards is bad.
They're so funny to watch.
Like, man, it was so bad because they were in Washington, and I remember just at one point in the game, like, I'd rather just watch some Hulu or some, because I even sat through the Lakers 40-point win after
Yep.
the Mavs 40-point win, and I watched the whole game. So but like against the Wizards, I was like, I'd rather do something. Go take a walk or something. All right, so that was fun. So the next person, let's do. We pretty much knocked out the whole bench. We only got 5 left, so let's do Derek Jones Jr.
He's been an A for me. I again, another guy I didn't expect was going to do much for this team. I was kind of surprised when they signed him. He was kind of a journeyman. I think 6 years and 7 or 7 teams in 6 years,
Yeah.
7 teams in 6 years, something like that. 6 teams in 7 years, something like that. His shooting has improved tremendously. He's an absolute like beast when it comes to lob threats. Like we've seen him throw down some nasty dunks. Also, athleticism has been crazy. He can run out in transition. We've seen him play. He normally is guarding the opposing point guard, so he's kind of letting Luka, take some of the small forwards, power forwards. He's been great, man. Like this is based on what we thought going into the season. I truly did not expect much from him. I had him coming off the bench, and for what he's done, I'll give him an A. I think he's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, I don't have that much to say about it. It's just an A.
Yeah,
Incredible. I mean, he's absolutely incredible, and that's what I thought Josh Green was going to be.
Yep.
Because Derek Jones is flourishing in his role. He's shooting 41.7% from 3, and he's not a shooter.
Good. His stroke looks nice. Like that
career,
beautiful.
Yes, career 32%,
yep.
And he didn't take a lot of threes. He's taken he's already past last year's threes. He's only played 20 games, so the confidence they're giving him, and then he's also getting a lot of open shots, and just that, and then just him taking advantage of the opportunity and playing great himself. All 3 of those just mixed in one is great, and nothing else to say. Just an A. Outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's do the Rook, Derek Lively. Speaking of outstanding,
do we even have to explain this one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say A.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, there's nothing else to say. I mean, you can go ahead and say what you want to say, but he's exactly what the Mavs hoped for and dreamed of, and he's here.
Yep. What? It's an A. There's nothing to say. I mean, he's surpassed everything that we thought. We thought coming into the year, it was like, all right, it's going to be developmental. Like, let's see what happens. Is he, should we go? We were talking like, should the Mavericks really go get DeAndre Ayton and let Derek Lively like sit behind him and learn? And it's like, the dude has outplayed everything Ayton did in Phoenix. It feels like he's been better than Ayton was. Like, Lively has been just absolutely unbelievable, and there's things he's got to clean up. But man, you talk about the perfect complement for Luka and Kyrie, and that's it right there.
Yeah, and you see him prosper because not only do they trust him with defense and lobs, he's also getting just passes that you're just like, oh, well, that was just way too high. But like Luka and Kyrie are just throwing lobs just to throw them and go get it. I mean, that's so like the trajectory of his season is going to get even better as the season goes along, because now instead of just running plays, sometimes they just throw it up to just see if he'll go get it. And if he averaged one more shot per game or in half of his games, he would be leading the league in field goal percentage. He just hasn't had enough shots, which he has had the last 10 or 12 games, but
He's
the
getting
first
there. It'll by the
he's
end of the year,
getting
I think
there.
he'll be up there. Yeah.
He will be there, and also he's like top 15 in blocks as a rookie. Obviously, Chet and Wemby are way higher, but just as a rookie and what you expected from him, you already said it. We expected, others to be ahead of him, and he's just taking advantage of the opportunity. He's only going to get better, and he's only going to get bigger. So, man, I love it.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Okay, let's do Grant Williams.
Oh man, I gotta go first on this one, don't I?
That's why I did lively.
Oh man, Grant Williams. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the C right now. I don't know whether to go B or D, so I'm just gonna go C.
Yeah.
Because I think I think the injuries to the roster and especially having Kleba out have forced him to kind of play a bigger role than what we expected. The beginning of the year he was fantastic. I mean, he would have gotten an A if we're talking the first.
A, yeah.
He's he's definitely come back down to earth, if you want to say the last few weeks. I mean, he's averaging his last 5 games. He's averaging 6 points, and he's shooting 22% from 3. So not ideal, but he's also not taking a lot of shots. Like, at the beginning of the year, he was taking like 13, 14 shots a game, I think, and now he's down back to like anywhere between 6 and 12. So I think, and I think the last few games you've seen now that Kyrie's kind of back, you're starting to see Luka and Kyrie's, starting to play a little bit more, and there's been a couple blowouts in there where, that a lot of the starters haven't played a lot of minutes. So there's different factors going into the last 5 games, but I'll give him a C right now. Like, I think he's just in a slump. I think beginning of the year you saw kind of the potential, and I think he's a great fit next to Luka and Kyrie. So yeah, I mean, I think right now it's a C. I mean, we'll have to see how the next quarter goes, but he's kind of been what I thought he would be.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a C as well. The first 10 games was an A. The last 10 games was an F.
Yes.
So just me in the middle.
There you go.
Because we're going on what we've seen this season. So that's really what it is. I thought he would be a little better than the mid of what he's been. But at the same time, that's probably what he is. He'll probably go on stretches where he's an A and then stretches where he's an F. But the defense has to be consistent.
Yeah.
That's what has to be consistent. Because you see half of the time you saw what you saw that Boston version of Grant Williams. And then, the other half of the time you're like, dang, if he's not hitting shots and his defense is not there, I mean, should he come off the bench?
Yeah.
So it's like his defense has to stay locked in, even if the game's out of position of being a win. Like, you have to see him be the best defensive player. And now we're seeing Derek Jones Jr., Dante Exum, and Derek Lively. I mean, is Grant a top 3 defender on this team anymore?
Yeah.
So that's a
good question. I mean, that's what he was brought in for, right? Is to be kind of your main perimeter defender. And Derek Jones Jr. is kind of taken over that role, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully he gets better soon, health wise. We want all the players, Josh Green, Maxey, and Grant, to get back on the court and see this team at its full potential. But the main event time, let's start with Kyrie Irving. And I go first this time. Kyrie is my boy. I root for his success, because I mean, we've talked about him a lot. Obviously, he's the second best player on the team. You talk about him a lot, but we've talked about him off the court a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just the leadership and what he's brought to the Mavericks and comparative to his previous couple teams. But I'm gonna give him a B.
Okay.
Just from what I've seen this season, the first few games, I was gonna give him a C or a D.
Yeah, it was
but
pretty bad.
It was pretty bad, but he's turned it on, but not to the level of Kyrie that we all know. So I'm gonna give him a B because he's still doing great. I mean, he's averaging 24 points and he's shooting um 40 47 38 and 90. I mean, those are pretty good. He's averaging 5.4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1.2 steals. He's played 16 out of 20 games. That's good.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm just gonna give him a B because it could be better, but it could also be worse. So from what we've seen after the bringing him back on a big contract, I'll give him a B so far.
Yeah, I was thinking a B. I'm gonna lean towards an A actually, and I think more so because I think we've started to see the reason why the Mavericks went out and got Kyrie Irving. Like you're starting to see the chemistry between him and Luka. You're starting to see they're playing pick and roll a lot more. They're starting. Kyrie has 100%. It feels like accepted his role as kind of the Robin to Luka's Batman, and we talked about it last week. I think that's where he thrives. And if you look at his career, that's where he's been the best. Is when he's kind of that second guy. And the way he's talked, in some of his his post game press conferences, the way he's addressed the media, the way he compliments his teammates, the way he's out there, like, it just seems like he's genuinely happy. And I know that was, not from us per se, but I think for a lot of people that was kind of the concern. And so I think I'm going to give him an A just because I think he's embraced that role with Luka. I think you've seen him take over games, right? I think it was when the Pelicans game where he had 35, a couple weeks ago, and you've seen him take over, and like that, and we've seen Luka defer to that as well, right? And so it's cool to see that dynamic, and so I'm going to give him an A for embracing the role and being the Kyrie Irving that we remember so far this year.
And that's what's so good about these report cards, because I can't wait until the mid-year.
Okay, yeah.
Just to see how they compare to our first quarter.
Oh, boy.
That's going to be interesting. And the last person and the final words of this podcast episode, Luka Doncic. You go first.
I mean, I think he's having the best year of his career. Like, how can you not give him an A? Like, look at his efficiency. Look at what he's doing. I mean, a triple-double in the first half. Like, I know it was against Utah, but come on. Like, that's unreal. I mean, he's putting up 40-point burgers like it's nobody's business. His three-point shooting has improved so much. If it weren't for the seasons that Jokic and Embiid are having, he'd be the leading MVP candidate. And I think as the season goes on, I think he's going to move his way up the ladder. I think he's going to finish top 2, if not win the MVP this year. I have nothing else to say. He's having the best year of his career, and it's an easy A for me.
Yeah, and that's where this gets tricky because, he sets the bar so high where it seems like, I mean, obviously he could play a lot worse, but like just his bad games are good. That's what I'm trying to say.
So crazy. It's so ridiculous.
Like if he had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, but he shot, 45%, like that's some people's best night. Yep. So, and that's probably one of his worst games. And when I think about, we talked about it, just his improvements and why you see like his rebounding and assists lower than norm. But recently it's been, he's played so well where now they're getting close to norm. Yeah. And he's playing with Kyrie. So that's how good he is. Because we always said it from previous seasons, like, once they get an all-star player, his numbers will come down, but as long as they win, that shows the true value of him. They're winning now. And you just mentioned the dynamic chemistry with Kyrie, and that's working. And he still has MVP numbers. That's insane. So, of course, an A. Yeah. His efficiency is the highest it's been. and his assist and rebounds are getting to close to norm, and his defense improved.
And
I
his
mean,
usage rate is down.
there's
That's another key.
yeah, and the way he's played after having his daughter. I mean, girl
Yep.
dad Luca is
Headband
going
girl
to
dad
be
Luca. Oh boy.
headband girl dad Luca is flu game Jordan. I mean, you know,
It's it's just that Utah game was just unreal to see. Like that just
he didn't play the fourth quarter.
yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just when somebody asks you like how good is Luka Doncic, I'll just put on that game. Like here, watch this. That game and then every Clippers game you've ever played.
Hit play.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so Shahnavaz, that is our first quarter report card. Overall, how'd you think I did? And then I'll say how I thought you did.
I'll always give you an A, my friend. You're the man.
Man, you make it so easy because I was going to give you an A. You did really well. Honestly, we were very similar. There's a few of them that we disagreed.
Yeah.
Which
not by much.
I can't wait.
I think we're pretty in line.
Yeah, so I did say Luca was the final words, but Shahnavaz, to close the episode, what would you like to see from the Mavericks tonight? I mean, it's the Trailblazers. Do we even need to say anything? I mean, come on.
Nah, look, the best thing about this year so far, well, I wouldn't say the best thing, because the best thing has been Luka and Kyrie, but Mavericks are finally beating bad teams. So let's applaud them for that, because last year we were struggling to wonder why they couldn't beat teams that were in the cellar. Now they're it doesn't even have to be a blowout, but just beat the bad teams. Like, it doesn't matter. These are all NBA level players. It's not every game is going to be a 40-point blowout. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of sucks that Grant's going to be out tonight and Josh Green's going to be out tonight and Maxey, because those are the guys.
Like
if
Maxey's
you
always
just
out, so.
listen, well, true. Those are the guys that you would want to play against bad teams just to get their confidence going and have a great game. So, all right, well, that was our first quarter report card. We'll have 3 more. I can't wait for the remaining report cards just to see how we go throughout the season. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure y'all subscribe and make sure y'all follow us on social media as well. Goodbye, everyone.